Hello everybody once again. In today's video I've got a vintage laptop to show you. This is a Compaq Armada 1540D and it was made in late 1997, possibly 1998, I'm not sure. This is a laptop that's been in my possession for 5 years. So why am I only getting to making a video of it now? Well, you see, this was given to me by someone who was long ago a part of my life. I was in a long distance relationship with them. They're not part of my life anymore. And during that time, they gave me this as a very, very generous gift. They're a vintage computer enthusiast. They actually had a few of these. They built this one out of all the best parts of all the other ones they had, which I thought was extremely sweet. And they gave this one to me. And, you know, I've had it, always planned on making a video of it. That relationship obviously fizzled out. So I was kind of just waiting for the statute of limitations to run out, where I could make a video of this thing without it being too terribly awkward, and I think the time is now for that. The other thing is that this thing's starting to fall apart, unfortunately. When I got this thing, it was in perfect condition, and it remained in perfect condition for the longest time. But now, recently, I took it out of the bag that I stored it in, and one of the hinges completely exploded, just completely fell apart. For indeed, unfortunately, this is yet another late 90s laptop where they stupidly used the plastic display casing as a load-bearing member for the hinges. So the metal hinge has no actual metal framework inside the display to attach to. It just attaches directly to the plastic molding. And of course, that plastic gets brittle, and in some cases the hinges get stiff. And when you add both those things together, you open up the laptop and the plastic can't bear the twisting load of the hinge, and it just shatters. And that's what happened to this. Now, when I was given this 5 years ago, the right hinge here had actually already done that, and it had been repaired. Well, over the time that I've owned this, I've had to repair it a couple of more times, and it was fine until today when I got out the camera and I looked, and it has split yet again. But it's still holding on, so I'll make this video and then I'll patch this up yet again. This is the hinge that was always perfect and then just suddenly exploded when I brought out this laptop for the first time in like a year or so. And JB Weld is what I've always tried to use, and it's never worked that great. JB Weld's just not great for plastic. So of course, in other projects I've discovered that Permatex Plastic Welder is an incredible epoxy for plastic use, way better than JB Weld on plastic. So this is Permatex Plastic Weld that I've used for this hinge, which exploded far more severely than this hinge did. The plastic is still here on this hinge. This hinge, it actually shattered, and there's no plastic there anymore. I'll open this thing up and you'll see what kind of a repair that I've had to do. There it is. And there's the hinge. And as you can see, I had no plastic left to work with, so what I've done is I basically just used a ton of plastic welder to basically replace the plastic that was once there. So there is none of the original plastic in this area anymore. It just goes from this part straight to the hinge, all with epoxy, and so far it's holding up. And there's the other hinge there. But there's the laptop. It's a pretty cool machine. Now, of course, the Compaq Armada series replaced the very well revered then and today Compaq LTE series. Unlike the LTE, the Armadas are more of a mixed bag in terms of, you know, the quality and, you know, the aesthetics. Some people like them, some people hate them. They're just not as well liked of a computer as the LTE. And I don't think in general they were as high quality of a laptop as the LTE, but this is what replaced the LTE. In the beginning, the Armada actually ran alongside the LTE as sort of a lower tier series of models, but then it just replaced the LTE altogether. She's got a, I think it's a 12-inch, 800 by 600 passive matrix display. That's fun. And she's got an Intel Pentium MMX. I think it's a 166 megahertz. And it's got 48 megs of RAM. It's EDO RAM. And this thing shipped with 16 megs, and that's built onto the motherboard. And then it has a single slot where you can add extra RAM. So it's got a 32 meg stick in there. You can put a 64 meg stick in its place to get 80 megs, and that's this thing's maximum. But this has 48 megs. And it's got a 2.1 gigabyte IDE hard drive. And it's a pretty nice laptop for the time. Now, of course, one of my computers that I had way back in my childhood that I, to this day, really miss was the Acer Extensive 501DX. Laptop that I had about 12 years ago now, 11, 12 years ago. And that laptop suffered from blown hinges, and the display completely I had to completely remove the display and use it as a half top, and it had other issues. And I didn't have the repair skills at the time that I do today, and I ended up just junking that laptop. And I've always missed that laptop, and I've always wanted a laptop that could sort of replace it, but I had never gotten one. Well, this is the closest thing in years that I've come to replacing that laptop. Now, I actually have another laptop now that I got earlier this year that I'll be making a video of in the future, which is honestly, you know, a almost perfect replacement for that Acer Extensa in terms of specifications and the era it's from and all that sort of stuff. So we'll make a video of that someday. But before I got that one, this was a pretty close replacement. Obviously it's older and the specs weren't as good. This also runs Windows 95. It's got Windows 95B on it. And I think it's still the original installation that I got this with. I don't think I've reformatted it. However, I'm going to reformat this at some point because it's got something wrong with it. I keep getting this MSG serve32.exe has performed an illegal operation. I don't know what happened there, so I might just wipe this thing and reformat it at some point. But there it is. Of course, typical of the time, you've got some hotkeys that you could program to do certain things. Suspend button and your power switch. We've got a trackpad. And we've got stereo speakers, which is pretty nice. And they're actually ported stereo speakers. According to what someone told me on Twitter, these were basically copied off of a Presario. And it's a pretty high-end speaker setup. They've got bass ports, you can see, and they actually sound really friggin' good. Very impressive sounding speakers on this, just like the Extensa had back in the day. So there's that. I always wonder when's the next time I'm going to close this and the hinges are just going to completely fall apart. Let's see what we got here. We have a floppy drive, of course, very nice. 2 PC card slots. There's where an optional modem would have gone. This does not have that. This doesn't have Ethernet either, so surprisingly, for a business grade laptop, this has no communications on it except for the serial port and parallel port. That is a PS2 port. We have infrared on this. There's the cooling fan, axial fan, instead of the blower type fans that laptops use today. That's a dock connector. I don't have the dock. And look at this. This laptop has a built-in power supply, which is a little scary when you think about long-term reliability, but it's so convenient because it just takes one of these Mickey Mouse style power connectors. Very, very cool. Built-in power supply. Monitor output, parallel port, serial port. No USB on this. This was before that time. Just before. We have a CD-ROM drive. I think it's 12X or something like that. Kensington lock port, although the plastics on this are brittle enough, it wouldn't take much to defeat that. Volume buttons, hardware volume buttons. I love that on a laptop. Headphone and microphone jacks. There's the battery. This thing has a good battery still. The person who gave it to me, of course, they had a bunch of these, like I said. They found the best battery and gave it to me, which was, again, just an extremely sweet gesture. But it's a lithium-ion battery. It's not an NiCad or nickel metal hydride. It is lithium-ion, and it's still a good battery. I don't know how good now, 5 years later, but it still powers on. And yeah, there you go. Got a couple of status LEDs. So let's go ahead and turn this on. I believe it's a Hitachi TravelStar hard drive. Oh, come on, focus. What are you doing? My camera's focused to the dirt on the lens. Come on. Guess I should dust my lens. And typical passive matrix display. It's very dim when it starts up until that fluorescent backlight warms up. Turn the brightness up a bit here. It's very nice. You don't need any operating system controls to adjust the display. You just hit FN, and then there's, of course, being a passive matrix, it actually has separate brightness and contrast controls, and typical of a passive matrix, you never really get a great picture on it. It's certainly workable, but definitely not high quality. It's also very ghosty. No, I tried to get the volume up, but there we go. Display is still, display brightness up all the way. Turn the contrast up a bit. There, it's a little bit better. Another thing I attempted to do was, oh yeah, I have QEMM97 installed. Not sure how much the last version of QEMM, how useful it actually was on the last version of Windows that QEMM was ever designed for, but I like to run it. I like to feel like it helps. I do know QEMM definitely helps on the Epson Action Note with its 4 megs of RAM. Let me turn some lights off so you can see this display better. I just remembered it forces the display brightness down to its lowest when it's running on battery power, so that's what's going on. And I'm too lazy to plug it in. But there we go, and look, Ma, no cords running off the battery. Does it give us a time remaining? No, it does say 80%. But there you go, pretty sweet. The hard drive in this thing is actually the exact same hard drive that's in that Tektronix CMD80 cell phone tester that I still have. I really gotta figure out a way to get rid of that. I don't want it anymore. But it's the exact same hard drive and it sounds exactly the same. It's always a quick rattle and then super quiet, and then a quick rattle and then super quiet. It's a very unique sounding hard drive. 2 gigs. And there you can see the CD-ROM drive and the floppy drive, which I've now angered. Yeah, another issue that was going on with this was I really tried to get a Wi-Fi card working. I have 4 vintage PC card Wi-Fi cards. I have a D-Link 802.11b, a D-Link 802.11g, a Linksys 802.11b, and a Linksys 802.11g. And I tried both of the B cards to get working on this, and I couldn't. It was giving really weird errors, even though both cards definitely support Windows 95. So I think there's just issues with this, and yeah, I'll wipe it someday because it's also giving me other weird issues. But yeah, not a whole lot to show here. I mean, the thing works. Let me open Windows Media Player. We'll play a MIDI file, demonstrate those speakers. The trackpad is a little oversensitive. I actually have the speed set to its slowest, and it's still really hard to concentrate the mouse on small buttons. The other thing is here, I do actually have pointer trails enabled, because this display, this passive matrix display, is so bad in terms of how quickly the pixels update, that I found that without pointer trails enabled, I would actually lose the cursor really often. I'd move the cursor and then have no idea where it went, because it's so easy to lose. Motion is just completely useless on this display. But I'm not complaining. I love passive matrix displays. They have so much character. I love it. So let's go. I do have Mozilla Firefox installed. I suppose I could put an Ethernet card in this. I believe this has drivers. They gave this to me with an Ethernet card, so I could put that card in here and we could just browse the internet just for fun. Really good speakers, incredibly impressive. Plenty loud too. Very impressive speakers on this. What else can I do? What else do we have? Oh, I do have Microsoft Office 2000 installed, my favorite version of Microsoft Office. Give that a quick open. Oh, dead name alert. Oops. Well, that shows how long I've had this thing. Yeah, there's Microsoft Office 2000. Let me put the, let me turn the volume up again, because if I go to the About page, it should play the Microsoft sound. Yeah. Okay, let me grab that Ethernet card. We'll see if it still works with that. And I think I have an Ethernet cable that'll reach over here. This 3Com megahertz 100 megabit PC card is actually period correct. It's from 1998. Unfortunately, the jack is broken. It doesn't retract back in anymore, so at some point I'll probably toss this on eBay for super cheap, or I'll just give it to the thrift store or something. But we will put that in and see if it likes it. Oh, she's doing something. No, it completely froze. Oh no. Oh, yeah, I gotta reformat this thing. Ah! Oh no! Oh no, no, she came back. She came back. That was funny. Alright, let's plug my Ethernet cord in. Click. Kind of a weird setup, eh? And we'll open up Internet Explorer here. Oh, it wants to dial up. Right, I configured this thing to work with a serial dial-up modem. Let me see if I can get this thing to work on Ethernet again. Alright, I figured it out, and actually I might have figured out why I couldn't get Wi-Fi cards to work either, so I might actually be able to get the Wi-Fi card working on this without having to reformat it, but let's just go on down to amstereo.org. We're in Internet Explorer 5.5, the last version for Windows 95. It's only recently, oh look at that, very nice. It's only recently that I've learned how big of a standard Internet Explorer 5 really was. All through the 2000s and even into the 2010s in the case of some websites, Internet Explorer 5 remained the baseline compatibility standard that so many websites were designed to. A surprising number of websites will still render in Internet Explorer 5, but nothing older than that. 5 really was a huge standard. I think if I go to google.com, I think Google still loads in Internet Explorer 5. Yeah, it does. And then, of course, a website I highly recommend for vintage computer enthusiasts, frogfind.com. It's a front end for DuckDuckGo search engine, and this will work down to like the very oldest web browsers. Another one I've liked that we've looked at before is 68k.news, I think it is. Yeah, and it's news headlines in plain HTML. Very nice. There's one kind of neat thing that I've actually used this laptop for. I actually made my website using this laptop. I made it in Microsoft Front Page 2000. You can't go to my website right now. The server, I ran it on that Pentium 2 Dell. And then I stopped. And I've just never... You can go to the website, it's florencemitchell.com. But it just takes you to a boilerplate landing page. Well, no, not boilerplate. I made the page, but it just takes you to a blank page saying that the server's offline and that page is hosted somewhere else. But yeah, I made my website for the short time it was up in Microsoft Front Page 2000. I still have all the files and everything, so someday I'll put it back up. I just don't know how comfortable I am running a local web server versus serving it somewhere else. But yeah, there you go. How are we doing for battery? Our battery icon changed. We have 60% remaining, so that's not bad. 20% loss over 20 minutes of use. But yeah, there you go. There's a look at the Compaq Armada 1540D from 1997 or 98. A very cool laptop from the late 90s. Unfortunately, suffers from an issue that so many laptops from the late 90s suffer from. But it's really cool, and as long as I can still keep the hinges in somewhat working order, I'll keep using this thing. It's fun to play around with. And hopefully it never gets to a point where I have to stop using it because I can't use the display anymore. I am past the point in my life where I'm willing to put up with half tops. So hopefully that doesn't happen with this. But there you go. Thank you so much for watching. I do hope you enjoyed. And I have so many more videos. I have so many more vintage laptops that I have to make videos about. There's a lot of content to come for sure. So thank you for watching this one, and I will see you next time.